Learn from the mistakes that others often make. Listen to marketing pains and don't go insane. Karen, thank you so much for joining me. I met Karen actually on a video shoot, and then I started to learn a little bit more about what she does. She was helping me out in a video shoot. I'm like, oh man, I need to talk to you about what you do. So give us a little introduction to yourself. You are involved with the startup community, kind of an enigma to me because I've never been part of that world. Talk to me about what you do and what your involvement in that world is.
Yeah, of course. So thank you so much for that. So I am in my third year of college, and when I first started college, I was very ambitious, and a big part of that was finding my mentor. And after I found my mentor, she was very much into the startup world, and I ended up joining her startup winery, and I got to see the fundraising process firsthand and dealing with investor relations and being able to see a founder get the funding that they need in order to fulfill the dream that they have or the passion that they want to pursue is something that I have held very close to my heart. And so the past 2 years, I have been able to fortunately work for some great startups, some small, some big, and seeing the funding different. You really want to help founders that are truly making an impact in the environment. And so now I started something called the Connective, actually. And the Connective, I did not think was going to even get off the ground, but I applied to build space with the idea. And the basis of the Connective is to bring together founders and investors because a lot of what happens in the startup community is founders don't know the fundraising process. Nobody teaches them that. Nobody teaches them how to find investors and all this different stuff. And there's so much that goes into it. And so building this community, I want it to be something of and I am working on the software. I'm not a software developer, but the software that I'm trying to build is to help match founders with investors that fit investors, their thesis or fit the check size that the founder is looking for. And so I want founders to have that community and to be able to understand, okay, I can go to the Connective to match up with these investors or to match up with these people in my city that are investors or that are founders. And so that's the basis of what I'm doing now.
Awesome. So you would laugh at me, but because I bootstrapped everything I've ever done, and I've been around a lot of like accelerators. I've worked around IBM accelerators. I've been around a lot of these accelerators. Awesome. But there's still part of me that has this like vision of Wolf of Wall Street with guys snorting crack and we're gonna get it done. It's like these frat boy, we're gonna raise it. That's still this weird perception I have in my head of startups. And I'm sure if you've been in the startup world, you've seen some people that are amazing at it. They've got some amazing concepts. I've met some that are just phenomenal. It was great. The IBM accelerator that I was filming had people from all around the world. There was like 12 countries represented, and it was amazing seeing these people from different worlds. But for someone like me that has been bootstrapped my entire 15-year entrepreneur career, what would you say if someone like, when do you know when you should be seeking VC capital versus a business that maybe would be a good bootstrap business? Can you give some identifiers for that?
Yeah, of course. One thing that I always love to say is you should tap yourself on the back for bootstrapping. That is an awesome thing to do. That takes grit, and that's really amazing. I recently, going back to the Connective idea, me not having the skill set of being a developer, I'm having to end up maybe raise to hire a developer or to hire a team that'll help me to get this set up. So a lot of identifiers or a couple identifiers that make fundraising need to happen will be, your team, the people that you need in order to make this fulfill and make this build out completely. If you have a 10-year plan and you have investors coming in, you want to make sure that you have some sort of success by that 10-year plan. And we know that it's not solid. Having the right team, having the right people, and then there's management, and there's so much more that goes into the funding round. And so bootstrapping is always awesome to me because I'm like, it's great that a founder is able to support themselves in that way. And it's always inspiring because there is that aspect of some founders not needing certain things. Like maybe we're seeing a rise in AI, right? And so a lot of different startups are needing less funding actually because of what AI is able to do. And I think the main factor for me when it does come to needing to fundraise would be building out that team.
Nice. Yeah, that makes total sense. All of my businesses really I've been able to operate from a very small overhead or with a horde of freelancers where we all conglomerate together. So I haven't had that
Right.
expense of hiring a developer or needing a lot of infrastructure or 20 trucks
Right.
or something like that. So
Yeah.
obviously different companies are required different overheads. So totally respect
Yes.
that. And think that was a clear way to say it. So what about
Okay.
obviously well what are some good avenues for people to go to? Let's say they are maybe they've been in their business for a year or so, or they're realizing, hey, I do need to raise capital. Where's a good place for them to start as far as getting the parameters for how they're going to do that?
A lot of the times when starting your fundraise, the first thing that we always say is to start with the friends and family round. You want to go to your friends and family, and a lot of the times founders will say, "Oh, I'm not sure that they have this, and I'm not sure if they have this." But a lot of times, friends and family do want to support you and they do want to make that investment into you. So, that is a very important first step to take. The second thing that I would say is research. I think it's important for founders to really take the time to research the different types of investors, the different types of VCs or angels that you are looking for. Because a lot of founders that I've helped with their pitch deck, you tend to find that sometimes you're needing to make multiple pitch decks in order to send this one to this VC, send this one to this angel, because a lot of the time there are different VCs and angels for different sectors, different industries, right? And there are some VCs that are more generalized. And so I would say the best thing you can do is start off with research. Research the industry giants that you're looking for, research the VCs, research the angels. And angels are going to be hard to find, but once you're able to research the types of VCs and investors, you will be great. A third avenue that I would add to that is Twitter. A lot of people underestimate Twitter. I think Twitter is a great place to find investors. A lot of my network of investors has grown because of Twitter, actually. And I would say beginning and being a first time founder or being a first time person that is wanting to raise, those are the first three steps I would say to take.
Cool. So highlight those three steps for me one more time. One, two, three.
Yes, so first step, friends and family. Second step is research. And I would say because you are going to make this investment, people are going to invest in you, invest the time to research. Maybe it's going to take days, maybe it's going to take weeks, but really get into it. So, research and then Twitter, getting on Twitter, connecting with the right people, and you'll quickly see your Twitter network grow.
This episode is brought to you by Suited, your marketing pain relief. Love our show? Get our turnkey dream podcast service and we'll handle editing, publishing, and finding your guests. Just hit record and we'll do the rest. Visit looksuited.com for details.
Nice. That's one thing I do like about the startup space is that they have sometimes a better grasp on their numbers than a lot of the established businesses. Like they know what their
Yes.
client acquisition cost is going to be. They know what their overhead. They know how much they're going to spend on marketing. They know here is our ROAS number and what we can do for. I mean, numbers that a lot of average businesses would be like, oh, we don't know. Which is funny because
Yeah.
Drew, my business partner, and I, we have walked into established businesses and we start talking about marketing. Hey, you should be investing anywhere from the average Forbes average to say 7% of your bottom line
Right.
into marketing. And they'd be like, oh, and it's just comical because they didn't come from that startup space. They grew in a very different
Right.
way. And so suddenly they want to have exponential growth. They've been
Yes.
established for 10 or 15 years and all of a sudden we want to have exponential growth. And you say, okay, this is what you need to do. Something that's totally familiar to the startup space, but can be like just terrifying for an established mom and pop business. And I've seen that lots of times.
Yeah.
So startup definitely has that down. That's something that other businesses might need to watch sometimes. So let's
Definitely.
shift and talk about the market because I feel like there was like this startup craze that really happened from like maybe 2013 to the last maybe year or two. And there was a
Yeah.
lot of free money. That's over exaggerated term is free money, but now the market's kind of shifting with everything that's going on. Have you noticed that shift? How are things changing in your world as far as the approach to startups and capital has gotten more expensive? So how was that affecting the startup world?
Yeah, so actually going back to AI, I think that's been a huge factor of the startup space. And it's funny, just recently I just read some data saying that a lot of VC this first quarter has gone to AI powered startups, right? And so I think the past 2 years, the growth in people wanting to start something new, right? We had 2020 COVID, people losing jobs and people wanting to start something afresh, something where they're not under someone. I think there was a spike in 2020 as well that kind of helped the boom of startups to get people happy and wrought up about how the market's going, how things are going. And so, yeah, I think it's been interesting. And I think even the next few years, I think AI is really going to change a lot of things for us.
Yeah, I could totally see that with, especially when it comes to programming, because that was the biggest expense for a lot of these. You know, they're going to spend, they
Yes.
spend millions of dollars developing an app for code that ultimately can be generated by AI in the future, if not now. So I think that would, yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense because that's where I think the big money suck has gone to a lot of these
Yes.
digital startups. So yeah, that's really interesting. Do you
Yeah.
think has been an over evaluation of startups and that's going to change, or do you think that's going to go down or up with the market flux?
That's a great question. Me personally, I think there's gonna be a decrease for a moment. I think there was an influx of people starting businesses and having startups, but I think people underestimate maintaining that and maintaining being a founder because I think looking at it, it's like, oh, this looks so fun. This looks so great. Like I own a business, but then going through the process of getting everything you need, maintaining, getting, making sure that you're getting revenue, making sure that you are generating that profit. I think a lot of the time people see it at first and they're like, oh man, I want to start something, but then they fail. Not to say that failing is bad because you are still making that step and you did still learn, but I think in the coming next few months at least, I think we are going to see a little bit of a decrease.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the reality of it. Whenever there's an economic downturn, it's interesting
Yeah.
to see who survives the economic downturn.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I learned because I started my business in 2008, and I was,
Oh.
which was an interesting time to start. At that time, I was doing construction, but seeing
Ah.
like everything just go down, and then you see it was surprising who survived and who didn't. Some of these big companies, they made it through, but yeah, I mean, they were, because they had just over leveraged themselves and hurt themselves, they were in really bad shape. And
Yeah.
it was just interesting to see how that all plays out. So you mentioned AI a couple times. Do you have any AI tools that you would suggest to establish businesses? Like they're looking for tools to maybe accelerate some of their marketing or market growth. What do you suggest?
Yeah, so as of right now, I use a ChatGPT, which I think a lot of people use. And then I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but DALI for images that are, you don't need any type of copyright stuff going on with that. It'll just then generate images for you for your website, or if you need, something extra, like some images that you just need to use. But I would say ChatGPT, you don't even need to get ChatGPT 4 yet. If you cannot get that, ChatGPT itself, you can ask it to generate a marketing plan for you and it will. Or you can ask it to generate forms, documents for you and it will. I think a lot of people are underestimating the power of ChatGPT. I think in the startup world, a lot of people are using it, but I think, a lot of people that are just trying to utilize AI now are underestimating ChatGPT.
And how do you spell that? Dolly? How do you spell that?
Yeah, it's DALE.
.com? Is that right?
Yes, I think
Okay, cool.
so.
Awesome. So how can people get connected with you and Connective, and what's the next steps for you and your business endeavor?
Yeah, of course. So I would say it's my first and last name, Karen Boitey, Boaitey, on Instagram and Twitter. I am more VC and startup on Twitter though, and less of that on Instagram. And as far as next steps, I am looking to build out the Connective. I'm still working on the software, but with the timeline that BuildSpace has given us, which has been 6 weeks, I think I'll be able to use some type of no-code software to build what I need to build. And then I think my next route is VC. I'm really hoping to, in the next 2 years, have a fund. And so I'm just using the next 2 years to really learn and progress in my career.
That's awesome. Congrats to you, and I admire
Thank
your
you.
aspiration to go that route. It's something that I've like I said, just looked at like it was a museum glass. I'm like, how does that work? And been around it some, and it just enamors me that people can go that route. And then I see people, I mean, because it really is intense. When you get VC
Yes.
capital, like you have to use that money wisely. And
Yes.
we've all seen examples of people that didn't use it right and then damage their lifetime careers, and then people that have done it well.
Definitely.
It's like, it just amazes me what some people have done with
Oh, yeah.
a little bit of capital and then going a long way and creating a big business. Hats
Huge,
to you.
yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Karen, for joining us, and we will talk to you later.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Marketing Pains is a Suited Studios production and can watch and listen on all major podcast outlets. Staves off the pain. Use only as directed. Get your prescription at looksuited.com.